All guitar tab for this lesson appears on screen. Please use your DVD player's remote to pause the animated tab to work on individual exercises. Chapter points are placed throughout this program. Use your DVD player's remote to move forward to the next chapter or back to the previous chapter. This allows you to review and play along with each exercise. Additional material is stored on this disc that can be accessed on any computer that has a DVD drive. Simply insert this disc into the drive and choose to explore the disc instead of to play the DVD. Click on the file called tab.htm to print a copy of the guitar tab. Tab.htm will also give you access to animated tab to play along with all exercises. You may receive a security alert when you click on tab.htm. If so, you must choose to allow active content in order to access the file. This DVD doesn't install any programs, access information on your computer, or affect the security of your system in any fashion. This affects your computer no differently than browsing our site on the internet.
Hi, I'm Angelo from Metal Method. I've divided Speed Kills 2 into two different sections. The first part is oriented towards the fretboard hand, the second part to all the picking techniques and various techniques we're going to use to play intimidation riffs and just really virtuoso style guitar. Before we get started, let's tune up. The first string, E, second string, B, third string, G, fourth string, D, fifth string, A, and the last string, E. I get to tour all over the world, and before I start every show, I make sure that I do a particular warm-up, and that's what I'm going to show you. I warm up my fretboard hand first, and this is going to be a series of exercises that take each finger, fingers 1 to 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 4, and then combinations. I highly recommend before each guitar playing session that you go over these exercises I'm about to show you. Now when we show you the tab and when I play them, I'm going to stop at the 5th fret, but the idea is to take each exercise and play it all the way up until the 12th fret. In order to play fast, you have to learn how to play slow. These exercises are not designed to be played lightning quick. What they are designed to do is to warm you up so you can play lightning quick later. So here's exercise 1. Now it uses fingers 1 and 2, and remember, it's alternate picking, ascending, sweep picking, descending. Exercise 2 uses the same alternate picking, ascending motion, and sweep picking, descending motion as exercise 1. All of the exercises in this first portion of Speed Kills 2 are going to use the same picking sequence. Exercise 2 uses fingers 1 and 3 instead of 1 and 2. And remember, play it up to the 12th fret. On exercise 3, we use fingers 1 and 4. Yes, the metal look. And what you have to remember too when you're playing these exercises is to keep your thumb behind the neck and keep your fingers perpendicular to the fretboard. Now also notice that I don't play like this. You want to try and keep your fingers as close to the fretboard as possible. And remember, in this beginning, it's not how fast you play, it's how good you play it. So here's exercise 3. Exercise 4 uses fingers 2 and 3. Now this is the same tablature as exercise 1. It's really just using the 1st and 2nd fret, but using these 2 fingers at a whole different dimension to playing this riff. On exercise 5, we use fingers 2 and 4. Now this is where it really starts to get difficult. And when you play these exercises, once you learn the correct fingerings, the main thing that you can do to help yourself and to really utilize what I'm trying to show you here is to play each exercise one after another without stopping. And remember again to keep your hands close to the fretboard, use the same picking technique. Also, the tablature for this exercise is the same as exercise 2. Exercise 6 uses fingers 3 and 4. And for a lot of you that haven't really worked on your fretboard hand, this is probably going to feel like torture, especially when you get past the 5th fret. Now what you want to do here is make sure you play it slow enough to get it very clear sounding, because by the time you hit that 12th fret, your fingers are going to be like, they feel like falling off. And so what you have to watch is that you play it slow, you play it even, and you play it clearly. Exercise 7 is probably the hardest of all of them. And what you have to do is you use your 2nd and 3rd finger, but you span these 2 frets. And especially in the beginning when you play, what I found I have to do in the very beginning is just move my 1st finger almost off the neck totally. And then again, you play this and move it all the way up to the 12th fret. Exercise 8 uses 3 fingers. And what I wanted to do is to show in a very simple exercise an open position. An open meaning anything above 4 frets. A closed position is a 4-fret grouping. An open position, more than 4 frets, 5 frets. So this exercise spans 5 frets, and it goes from fret 1 to 3 to 5 using fingers 1, 2, and 4. Again, it's the same picking sequence, alternate ascending, sweep picking descending. Exercise 9 uses another 3 notes per string grouping. We're going to use fingers 1, 3, and 4 in a 3 note per string exercise. Again, same picking technique up and down. And what I want you to do is remember to keep your hands close to the fretboard. This is probably one of the single most important things you can ever learn about guitar. I call it economy of motion. You don't want to move a lot. You can be much faster on guitar by limiting the motion of your fretboard hand. I can be way faster than another guitar player by just limiting this versus a guitar player that plays like this. So remember, when you're playing these exercises, keep your fingers close to the fretboard. I found that touring around the world as much as I do, it leaves unlimited possibilities for no practice time before I get on stage. I've actually had situations where I took a plane from the United States, got off the plane in Brussels, Belgium, and instead of having to go to my hotel, I had to go straight to the venue and perform. And it's situations like this that I've come up with one basic exercise that I call the quickie fretboard hand warm-up. So what I do is, instead of going 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, I exercise all the fingers in one exercise. Now, after playing those first 10 exercises, you should be very warmed up by now. Exercise 11, we are going to start with your picking hand. What this exercise uses is alternate picking. Play down, up, no matter where it goes. We're going to use all 6 strings on this, and it's in the E Dorian mode and a little bit of the blues scale mixed in. I released a CD called Hands Without Shadows. On this CD, I paid tribute to some of my favorite guitar players of all time, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Ritchie Blackmore, and I did a cover of the Deep Purple song called Burn. And in this song, they have some really great neoclassical parts that are really kind of standard harmonic progressions that you hear other neoclassical guitar players play and that you've heard in orchestral music. And what this next riff is one of the riffs that I wrote for the song Burn that revolves around this progression. It starts in G minor, then it does a harmonic sequence of G, C, F, B flat, E flat, C, D. So it's like... Now we use all alternate picking on this, and when I play it on the CD, it's really fast, and when I play it for you here, it's going to be really fast. When I first started playing at the age of 10, I remember walking into a store with my mom, and it was a department store, and I'm hearing this music. It was this clean guitar sound, and eventually I learned it was all alternate picking, and I found out later that it was the artist George Benson. And so what I did was I wanted to learn how to play that style and apply it to rock. So I started listening to great people like George Benson and Joe Pass, and really some of the great jazz artists of the past. And one of the artists I came across was named Charlie Christian. And the thing that I loved about him is that he was 21 years old, and he's been credited with being the very first electric guitar player. He was the dude who figured out that you could plug a guitar into an amp into a wall, and you could be louder than every brass instrument known to man. Because before that, guitar was a background instrument because it just wasn't loud enough. So anyway, when I heard Charlie Christian, not only did I think he was innovative, because that's what I've always tried to be. I never tried to copy other people. I wanted to play like Mikey. I wanted to develop things that were my own, and I kind of gravitated and looked towards other guitar players who did the same. Charlie Christian was one of them. And in addition to being such an innovator on the guitar, he played really incredible riffs. So Exercise 13 is a combination of Mikey and Charlie, and I call this Charlie C and me because it's a little bit of Charlie Christian and a little bit Michelangelo Badio. In each of these exercises, I've tried to make sure that I didn't stay in one key. It's very easy for guitar players to get locked in the key of E or the key of A. In exercise 14, I'm using a whole tone scale and the key is B. Now, if you're not familiar with a whole tone scale, there's one chord in this scale, an augmented chord, because every note is a whole step away from every other note, and it's got a very bizarre kind of sound to it. A lot of times you hear it in improvisation, and the scale is... Now what I did was write a whole tone passage using alternate picking and all 6 strings. Exercise 15 is again in the key of G minor, and I wanted to reprise what I did earlier in the G minor harmonic sequence that I used in the song Burn. Again, we're using the same sequence that I played for you earlier, but it's a variation on it. It's really a cool one. The thing that I like most about playing arpeggios like this, which you're going to see, is that I'm using a combination of different picking techniques. And I found to really expound upon just exercises and play music that you don't really want to rely on just one. And that's why in Speed Kills, I said, as far as picking techniques, I like them all. Sometimes you need hammers and pulls. Sometimes you need a sweeping technique. Sometimes you need alternate picking. This exercise that I'm going to show you is not only musical, but it employs those three. Exercise 16 is a variation of exercise 15. Again, we're going to use the same harmonic sequence, but instead of using different picking techniques, we're only going to use one. It has the same exact harmonic sequence, and again, this is one of the things that I use on Hands Without Shadows. What I like about this is that it uses 4 different kinds of arpeggios, and you can use them in a musical way. The first arpeggio shape is the minor arpeggio shape, and it'll start in G minor, and it'll go like this. The next shape is this minor arpeggio shape. Then there's a major shape, and another major shape that goes like this. So after you play these 4 arpeggios, now we put them in the context of music, and that's where this exercise comes in. It's not only something that'll really help your sweeping technique, but it sounds really cool. Now this next exercise that I wrote uses something that I like to do a lot, which is string skips. Also, we use all alternate picking because as much as I love sweep picking and love legato playing, alternate to me is the hardest. And if you think like a violinist and watch violinists play, when they're moving that bow really fast back and forth, that is the equivalent to alternate picking. It's a very aggressive sound, and it's one that is my personal preference. Now, in this exercise, we are using the Dorian position in D, and it uses all 6 strings, and then we're going to jump from like strings 1 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 5, 4 to 6. I love Django Reinhardt. I had the opportunity to tour France, and I mean, I've toured all over planet Earth, but when I toured in France, I played in the south of France, and there is a style of guitar that is something I've known about since I was a kid, but I really got to see it and got to understand the area of the world which it came from, and it's gypsy jazz. Django Reinhardt played the style of gypsy jazz, and a lot of his famous recordings were recorded in France. Django Reinhardt had only 2 working fingers, these 2. His other 2 fingers were burned, I think, in a fire. All I know is when you see photos of him, his fingers were like this. And that guy ripped on guitar. And what I really loved about the way he played was not only was it fast and it was melodic, but it was so creative. He had his own style of vibrato and his own style of putting notes together unlike anyone I'd ever heard. And so what I used to do as a little guy is I would sit and listen to his music and just figure out his riffs. And one riff in particular that I figured out was in the key of D major, and it uses all 6 strings, and it's an alternate picking, and it sounds like this. Exercise 19 is a 6-string tapped arpeggio. Now I'm going to do 2 versions of this. This is the A major shape, and it goes like this. Exercise 20 is the minor version of exercise 19. And again, it's a 6-string tapped arpeggio. So here we go. One of the other techniques that I use is a technique called 4 notes per string. A lot of guitar riffs are only 3 notes per string, and with alternate picking it actually makes it a little more difficult, because with 3 notes per string you'd have down, up, down, then your next string would be up, down, up. Whereas 4 notes per string, you're always hitting the new string with the same picking stroke as the string before. Meaning if you're using 4 notes and you're playing with alternate picking, it would be down, up, next string down, up, next string down, up. So it's the same. Exercise 22 is another 4 notes per string riff. And what I found with using 4 notes per string is that sometimes it works really good using an open fret position like in exercise 21, and sometimes a more chromatic sound where it's a closed fret grouping. So exercise 21 was an open fret grouping, this one is a closed fret grouping, and it sounds like this. Now you can do variations of these exercises, especially when the initial exercise is played so low on the fretboard. So instead of playing it down like this, you can play it up an octave higher, and that will sound like this. What I tried to show in this DVD is to use exercises and to make them sound good and make them be musical. I want to tell you one of the mottos that I came up with and one that I live with. And it's not just about playing fast on guitar, and it's this. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. I'm Angelo from Metal Method. This is Speed Kills 2. See ya.